So the next thing we're going to look at are Freudian ego defense mechanisms. As I said in the previous video, the ego is incredibly important, and so we employ ego defense mechanisms to protect our psyche. Freud says these are unconscious protective devices. So that means we don't know we're doing them. We don't know we're employing these devices to protect our psyche. So I'm going to tell you some ego defense mechanisms, and then there's an activity that you might want to do at the end. So here's a list of 10. You won't need to know 10 for the exams. I'm going to talk you through a few of these now. So the first one is denial. And you've probably heard that word, we use it in everyday language. If someone's in denial, they are refusing to accept that an aspect of reality is true. It's not that they're pretending that it's not true, they genuinely think it hasn't happened, it's not happening, it's not true. So I've got a picture here of somebody texting while driving, and in order for someone to do that, they'd have to be in denial, because all the scientific evidence shows us that it's impossible to focus our visual attention on two things at the same time. So you're either focusing your visual attention on your phone, or you're focusing your visual attention on the road. And if you're in control of a car, you need to focus on the road. That's why it's illegal to text and drive. However, many people do it. And those people are in denial. If they realised that what they're doing is dangerous and life-threatening, then they wouldn't do it. So in order to do that, they've got to be in denial. They might say something like, no, it's not difficult to text and drive. Well, no, it's not difficult to text, but you can't focus your attention on the road. So they're refusing to believe that aspect of reality and refusing to acknowledge that's why the laws have been made about that kind of thing. Other examples of denial, very common ones, are things like people who smoke. Again, you've got to be in denial to smoke unless you're suicidal, because smoking kills you, and we all know that. We know the scientific evidence. So to be able to put the cigarette, to start smoking, requires an aspect of denial. In the activity that you might want to do, there's plenty more examples. The second ego defense mechanism is called regression, and this is where it's almost like we go back in time to a time where we felt safe and secure and happy, and we engage in behaviours that we did at that point in our lives. So there's a picture here of an adult sucking her thumb, which is a childlike behaviour to do. So if someone's gone through something horrible, then or something traumatic or something worrying, they might regress and do those childlike behaviours. So it could be thumb sucking, it might be watching Disney movies, or like going to bed with a teddy bear or something like that. It's like you go back to a time where you felt safe, and it's called regression, and it protects our psyche because we feel safe and secure in that place. Another ego defense mechanism is called displacement, and this you've probably seen yourselves. It's where you take out all your frustration and anger on the wrong person. So someone does something to annoy you and upset you, and instead of having a go at that person, you go home and you might shout at your sibling or at your parents or your guardians, whoever you live with. You might like kick a door or something like that. So instead of taking out your upset on the person that you're really annoyed with, you displace your upset and hurt onto someone else. And it's usually someone, if it's a person, then it's someone who genuinely, will love you unconditionally, which is why our siblings and family members tend to cop it. It protects the psyche because it's probably too difficult for you to actually tell the person who's really upset you they've upset you. So it could be that you're at work and it's your manager and you can't say anything to your manager because you're scared of losing your job. So all that pent-up frustration and anger, you go home and you take it out on the wrong people, and that is displacement. Another ego defense mechanism is sublimation, and this is the most positive of all the ego defense mechanisms. It's a little bit like displacement, but instead of taking your anger out on the wrong person, you take it out on something creative or sporty, usually. So you might go for a run or a bike ride, or you might get immersed in writing a song to get all of your hurt out. I mean, there's so many love songs in the world that talk about broken hearts, and it's a way to kind of deal with your upset, and so it's protecting your psyche from pain because you're kind of getting it out in a positive way. Another ego defense mechanism is called projection, and this is where you place all your unwanted feelings onto somebody else. So it could be, an example would be if someone said, "You hate me." Projection means that it isn't that they hate you, it's that you hate them. And if you hate someone, that doesn't really feel very nice. It doesn't make you into a particularly nice person to, you know, have all that hate within you. And so instead of saying, "I hate you," you project your unwanted feelings onto that person and say, "You hate me." A really classic example of projection is if someone says, "You're cheating on me." And if anyone ever says that to you and you know you're not cheating on them, then according to Freud, it could be projection. It could be that they are cheating on you. And so it doesn't make you a nice person. If you're cheating on someone, being unfaithful, that's going to give you guilt and anxiety. And so instead of acknowledging that you're the one in the wrong, you project it, you place it all onto the other person. Another ego defense mechanism is called isolation. And this means that if something traumatic or horrible happens to you, you isolate it. So you get that thing and you place it somewhere like there. And it's got a lid on it. It's in a box and it's got a lid on it. And therefore you can talk about that traumatic event without it actually causing you to cry or be upset. So you take the thing that's traumatized you or upset you and you isolate it away from the rest of your being, your psyche. So it still happened, and you know it still happened, but it's in a box and the lid's on the box. Freud would say that sometimes that lid is going to fly off, and in that case, woof, you're totally overwhelmed and probably cry your head off. But isolation protects the psyche because you kind of place it away from you. Although you can still remember it happened and everything, you're kind of a bit numb about it, so it's just over there and it can't hurt you. Another ego defense mechanism is called reaction formation, and this is where you think and say the exact opposite to what you really feel. So reaction formation, if somebody really hurt your feelings, maybe they slagged you off on social media and said, "I know, you looked horrible," it's when you see that person, instead of like kicking off and going, "Oi, what did you write that about me for?" You go, "Oh, hi, how are you? I haven't seen you for ages, so nice to see you." And you mean it, you're genuine. So this is protecting the psyche because it means you don't have to deal with the confrontation. You don't really have to own what they said, and it kind of smooths over, smooths the waters. So reaction formation, you are formulating your reaction instead of it being a natural reaction of, "Hey, don't be writing horrible things about me on social media," which is what you should say, or maybe not aggressively, but you should say that. Instead you say the exact opposite, and it just kind of like takes away all that confrontation. So it protects your psyche from any further hurt. Another ego defense mechanism, and this one's really important to know about, is repression. So Freud said, if you think about the iceberg, 10% is conscious above the water. Freud said that in some instances, if something really terrible happens, we get that memory and we force it all the way down to the bottom of the iceberg. And so if it's right the way at the bottom, it can't hurt us anymore, and we actually can't remember it. So it's still in our mind, but it's hidden deep at the bottom of the iceberg. And Freud thinks that by making the unconscious conscious, it will help you, it will free you and allow you to be happier, because he thinks that those repressed memories are deep rooted in your unconscious and will affect your behaviour in a negative way. So his therapy is all about uncovering those repressed memories so that they are conscious and you can be happy again. So repression, you get something traumatic and you unconsciously push it all the way to the bottom of the iceberg. So if it's down there, then it's a defense mechanism because it can't hurt you immediately. But Freud says actually you do need to know, you do need to remember those things to fully get over them. So those are some of the ego defense mechanisms. I think there are a couple more. if you would like to do the activity, then you'll need the PowerPoint that with all the bits and pieces on, and the link for that is in the description below. And it's a case of like looking at all the different things on the PowerPoint, cutting them up, and then putting them into the correct ego defense mechanisms. So you're kind of trying to recognize which each one is, and it's just quite a good consolidation activity. So, and the other thing you can do is you could watch an episode of First Dates. I'll put all the details of where it is. It's series 5, episode 3, and you can watch it on all 4. And have a look at Lauren and Danny, and you can analyse the behaviour. You can have a look at what's in their unconscious, and you can see which ego defence mechanisms they're using. And if you would like to have like some ideas of possible Freudian analysis, then again, the handouts contain that, and the link for that is in the description below this.